the 5 things that you might want to learn about servicing real estate listings. And I'm going to explain this in a way so that even a fifth grader can understand. Because if I'm learning to master this information, and people always talk about how you got to get a real estate license in order for you to be in real estate, which is not true. I wanted to see what do real estate agents really learn in their materials. Because sure, I can get my real estate license, but the whole point is for me to be able to teach my kids in a simple manner so that even they can understand what they can expect whenever they're working with a real estate agent. Because even if they're not real estate investors, at the minimum, they might work with a real estate agent one day, and they'll probably understand what the dynamics should look like and what does good look like at the very minimum. So this is for all of our kids out there. So let's talk about servicing listings, right? And that's really what is it, right? It's the day-to-day, week-to-week actions that ensures a home's best chance of selling, right? It's just, it goes beyond just listing a property, right? It's about ongoing tasks like how are you updating your marketing? How are you handling your property showings? How are you communicating with the seller? Because that's so important, right? You need to give that listing constant attention. It is not a set it and forget it type of transaction, right? You got to answer any inquiries, right? You got to track the views, the activities online. Maybe you got to get new photos when activities are low, right? When you keep the listings active and appealing, that's how you can attract serious buyers and show your client you're on top of things, which is really, really important, and probably the best way that prevents you from losing the listing. I like to think of it as watering a garden, right? When you plant the seed, which in this case is a listing, you still have to water it, you have to care for it regularly to just see real growth and make sure it's getting the right sun, right? Getting the right attention. Same concept for servicing listings. So the most important thing I want to talk about is the communication with the sellers if you're a listing agent, right? At the heart of the listing service, it's just staying in touch with the homeowners, right? It could be a weekly call or a short message every single day, keeping them on track, updated on what's happening with the showings. If people have seen the house, what feedback have they given, and whether or not they gave an offer or not, right? And what kind of market shifts are happening, right? This builds trust so that they're confident you're working hard on their behalf. This is very basic. And a great way to think about it is if the person is not, the agent you're working with is not responsive even before you give them the listing, that's tough. I mean, you think they're going to get better after they get your listing if they're not good at communicating right now? I don't think so. I mean, it's kind of think about it. I have to think of it as if you're even you're in fifth grader, right? If you're in a team project at school and no one is sharing updates on what they're doing on the progress, I mean, the team naturally is going to worry. Hey, is that person going to pull their weight? Are they going to do their work? Right? When you have frequent check-ins, that's how you keep everyone calm, informed, and just aware. All right. The second thing I want to talk about is marketing, right? When you pick an agent, obviously, I hope you would have vetted them on their marketing plan. How are they going to spotlight the property? Are they just going to post an MLS or just go to Zillow and Redfin? I mean, anyone can do that. Anyone. How are you going to go above and beyond? What does your audience look like? What do you know about ads, right? Online ads, advertising your property. How about social media? What kind of following do you have? What kind of audience do you have? How do you handle professional photos? How do you stage the home if you are going to if you are going to recommend staging a home? What kind of Rolodex does that person have in terms of the resources that they can offer, right? And when you are in the midst of the listing, how are you adjusting your strategy if the home doesn't get enough foot traffic or line views, right? Are you going to switch up the photos? You got to keep it fresh, right? I like to think of it as if you're hosting a party, doesn't matter what time, right? You don't just send one invitation and hope for the best, right? You want to decorate, you want to remind people, you want to create hype, you want to create a theme, maybe something that helps your party stand apart is so crucial for you getting the right people into the room. And in this case, is getting the right buyers into the house that you're listing for. So feel free to challenge that realtor on all these questions. All right, third thing, showings, right? Open houses. This is probably one of the most common things that any seller wouldn't understand. But when you are arranging tours at a property, especially if you're living there, I mean, you got to coordinate times with the seller. You got to make sure that the kids aren't there at the home when someone's coming through the house. You got to make sure that the home is tidy, it's presentable, it's not messy. Because no one wants to walk into a home that feels old, tired, and messy. It's just not the right, not the right vibe, right? You don't want to be cooking something with a strong scent that's a little foul, right? Vinegar and things like that. You don't want that. You don't want someone walking into your home and having that sense of feeling or a smell of disgust. You don't want that. That's not smart, right? It's common sense, but just make sure you don't do that, right? And then when you have open houses, how are you attracting foot traffic, right? What signs are you putting out? How are you welcoming people? What is their experience working with you at first glance, right? All these things matter. So let's talk about a fourth thing, right? How do you gather feedback? Because this is really important. Every single time a buyer or agent viewed a home, you gotta follow up. That agent gotta follow up, and you should expect them to follow up. They should find out what they liked or disliked, and they gotta pass this information to the seller, right? What if they have a paint color on a wall that's very one-sided? Maybe this is the point where if you're not getting them traction, you might suggest, hey, let's just paint the walls a little bit more of a neutral color. All right. That's a quick, minor improvement. Or maybe they noticed something was dirty, clean it up right away. Or maybe a furniture was arranged a certain way and it caused there to be not as good of a flow when someone's walking through the home when they view the home. Rearrange your furniture or take one piece of furniture and put it to the garage. Who cares if there's less seating? But it creates better flow and that can just boost the emotions of someone that's walking through a home that they don't feel cramped, right? Because they are buying it for them, not how you want to imagine this home looking like. I like to think of this as if you're taste testing a new recipe, right? Some people will say, hey, it's too salty, or the other person might say, hey, it needs more sauce. And you adjust for the next time, right? Same goes for a home. Small little tweaks can make that home much more attractive, much more flavorful for certain buyers. All right, last thing, adapting the strategy, right? If you get very little showings or offers come in below expectations, it might be time to tweak the listing price, or maybe you upgrade certain features, right? Maybe you got to take it off the listing, do some cosmetic rehab so that you can make the home look a little bit nicer. And this is where you got to discuss those adjustments with the seller. So you're making decisions together. This keeps the process proactive, not reactive. Having all these data points are going to matter. I mean, this is just as if you're practicing for a game, right? If you keep missing passes or missing shots, you might want to change your approach. You might want to give someone a little bit more assistance, more backup, better screen than basketball, right? You want to change your approach where you set each other up for easier baskets. That's just the amount of pivoting that you want to do, especially when in real estate. If the listing is underperforming, you got to pivot the plan. So, hopefully, this was helpful, everybody. I really wanted to go through servicing listing because I wanted my kids to understand at the bare minimum what they should expect because they really should be expecting and looking for an A player. What sets them apart? How do they communicate with you? How do they take care of their clients? And that's so important because I always thought about the day I died and I thought, who's going to be there looking out for my kids? And I hope someone out there listening right now is going to be out there and value this information and pass it on. Because guess what? Sometimes kids don't listen to parents, right? But at least I can share this information with everybody else so that you guys can all pass it on and elevate our standards. for what we should expect and what good should look like. All right. Hope you all have an amazing Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in to my live for 550 days. Man, there's been so many days where I thought about quitting, and every once in a while I get a comment like from you guys, and I keep on going. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for supporting the Affordable Housing Podcast. Thank you so much for caring about affordable housing. Without people like you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 551. And again, this is not listening advice. This is not legal advice. It's not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm not a real estate agent as of this recording. I'm just simply studying the same material that all real estate agents do. And I want to pass it on to my kids. That's it. So if you have better analogies, leave a comment down below so that I can become a better dad and learn to explain something that's at a fifth grade level. Because if we can't explain something that simply, what's the point? Who are we really helping if we can't explain it? All right. Have an amazing Tuesday, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 551. Have a good one.